Today I'm going to be taking a look at a very interesting Linux distribution. This Linux distribution is a gaming distribution. It aims to bring the console gaming experience to the PC platform. That Linux distribution is called Drauger OS. Let's take a look. So, let's take a look at Drauger OS, their website here. Drauger OS, make your gaming experience perpetually pleasurable. I like the tagline. Anyway, Drauger OS promises better performance, higher performance, because Drauger OS 7.4.1, which is the version I downloaded, is built on the Lutris low latency Linux kernel. So it has a low latency kernel, again, for increased performance. They also are focused on security. Is this a right fit for you? I'm not sure, but let's check the About page. And let's see exactly who is Drauger OS intended for. So if I read a little bit of the About page, this is a Linux gaming operating system. It aims to provide a platform for gamers to use where they can get great performance without sacrificing their security. It's based off the Ubuntu LTS release, so Drauger OS uses the Ubuntu repository, so you can find all the software you want to find in it, because there won't probably be much software installed by default on Drauger OS. Again, it's designed mainly for gaming, so you're probably not going to have like your Office suite and things like that you'd find on traditional desktop Linux distributions. Also, because it's based on the Ubuntu LTS, 5 years of support. Actually, on the latest Ubuntu LTS, aren't they offering 10 years of support? I guess it depends on exactly what LTS they're basing this off of. So I'm going to go ahead and download Drauger OS, and I'm going to run through a quick installation inside a virtual machine. I'm going to install this inside VirtualBox. Alright, so I've got a VM fired up here, and we have our boot menu. I'm going to go ahead and boot into the live system. Alright, I've got to the login manager here. I think I don't have to enter a password. I just need to click the login button and it automatically logs us in, which is very nice. There are some distros out there, I won't name any names, that require you to actually type in a username and a password to get into the live environment. I hate that. The live environment should just be, you should just auto log me into a live environment. I shouldn't be asked for a password. Because what the hell's the password? You know, you got to go to their official documentation and try to figure out what the password. Anyway, I'm going to close that welcome screen here. And, oh, this is an interesting looking desktop. This is kind of jarring, right? This is very different because it has a panel. I'm not sure what desktop environment we're running. Looks like that's the whisker menu. So this is probably XFCE is what I'm guessing. But the panel is not at the top or at the bottom or even on the left hand side of the screen like you would expect. It is about a quarter of a way from the top. In the middle of the screen, basically. Huge icons. Kind of makes sense though for its purpose. I mean, it's designed mainly for like a console gaming experience, and it's probably going to be used mostly on very large monitors, possibly touchscreen monitors. I don't know how touch would work on this, or large TVs, of course, since it's for gaming. So if I look around for a installer, I see PlayOnLinux and Steam and the Software Center and install Drauger OS. Let me click that. Let's launch the installer. So this installer is strange. This is kind of confusing. Restore points, highlighted. This is more like a backup utility. But I'm not trying to back up or restore. I just want to install Drauger OS. I do see system install, so we do have that option. So let me see if this is it. My name, full name of the user, I'm just going to type DT, although it capitalizes D, even though I didn't do Shift D. Okay, whatever. I guess it's going to always automatically capitalize the first letter for the full name of the user. Anyway, my username is going to be DT, lowercase. Then I need to create a strong and complicated password for the DT user. So let me create that strong and complicated password. Then I need to do the same for the root user, create a root password. Alright, and then what is the host name of this computer? I'm going to type dt-vbox. That will be the computer's name. Then click next. Okay, now this is interesting. The partitioner looks a little confusing. I'm not right-clicking on it, doesn't do much, and really left-clicking on it doesn't do much. Create new. The arrow is going backwards, says add new partition. I'm good with just one partition. Just one big partition is fine for me. I've got plenty of RAM. I'm 32 gigs on my host machine, so I typically don't create swaps anyway, but I can't click next or anything. Create new. So what's the problem? Install Grub bootloader to /dev/sda. Yeah, that's okay. Reset part. I have no idea what to do here. Create new. The size is right. Mount point. Okay. Can I set the mount point? Man, this is very confusing. This partitioner is very, very confusing. File system. Yeah, extend 4 is the default, and that's fine with me. Format the drive, of course. Okay. So why can I not click next? Why is next not an option? No mount point? I have no idea what to do here. Like, seriously. Let me just delete that and start over. I don't know what I'm doing here. Seriously, guys, I have no idea why this is. Okay, I click the arrow again, and then I see next. I don't know. I'm just going to click next. Install the system using the following restore point. Yeah. All right. So that installer, confusing as hell. I got to be honest. That was one of the strangest install utilities because it was more of a system backup and restore screen on the first screen, and then the partitioner was very confusing. I would almost, and rather than using that partitioner, if you're going to give me something that confusing, man, just ship with gparted on the live image and let me just create partitions with gparted, or even just bring up a terminal and use fdisk or cfdisk. Because, wow, I got lost. It took me like 5 minutes. Seriously, I cut a bunch of dead air out of that, but that took me like 5 minutes just to figure out how to create one partition. So the install has completed. The install was very quick, 5 minutes. And by the way, I gave this VM 2 threads of my 24-thread Threadripper, more than enough to power any Linux distribution, really, and 4 gigs of RAM, which again should be plenty for what I'm doing today. I'm going to click OK, and of course to complete the installation we need to actually restart the machine, so let me go ahead and reboot. Alright, and I'm rebooting my freshly installed Drauger OS 7.4.1. Notice they still have the Ubuntu branding actually on the splash screen. It said Ubuntu 7.4.1. Strange that they changed the version number, but the actual name of the distribution wasn't changed. I will say that boot up is taking a long time. Now, this is the very first time booting up after installation, and sometimes, and depending on the distro, the very first time you boot up a freshly installed system can take a little longer. And we've got to our login manager, so we've rebooted our freshly installed Drauger OS. By the way, apparently it auto logs me in without asking for the password I created. I guess by default, logging in automatically. Maybe that was an option in the installer. I don't remember seeing it though. But I don't like having my user just automatically logged in for privacy reasons. I prefer to be asked for a password, but I guess I missed that option. Anyway, the Steam installer is warning us that we need to start Steam to complete the installation of Steam. So, you have things like Steam and PlayOnLinux and Lutris. Looking at the welcome screen, we have a link to the Drauger OS website. We have the Drauger OS tutorial recommended for new users. Now, since they recommend it, let's go ahead. So, welcome and thank you for choosing. Thank you for downloading and installing. Okay, next. So it's like little tips. In this tutorial, you will receive a quick introduction. So I guess you just cycle through and it gives you little tips and tricks as you cycle through. That's kind of neat, actually. I'm going to go ahead and exit out of that little tutorial, though. We have join the SIGO network and Drauger OS forum, so you can, I guess, join their community. This screen is not properly sized. Let me resize it so I can actually see all the options. It's kind of hard to grab the edges of this. I'm not sure what GTK theme they're using, but man, the sides are really hard to grab a hold of. Anyway, we have an uninstaller. Well, that's an uninstaller for the welcome screen. If you're tired of seeing this, you click that and it'll uninstall the welcome screen. We have options for additional drivers. Now, because this is a gaming Linux distribution, if you plan on gaming, especially if you're running NVIDIA, you're going to need the NVIDIA's proprietary drivers. To get the best performance out of your video card, you have to have the proprietary drivers, so you will need to use the additional driver tool. Here is the Drauger OS keyboard shortcuts. So this is kind of interesting. Control-Alt-T, it looks like, is your standard for bringing up a terminal. That works in most distros, actually. I'm glad they kept that. Control-Alt-F makes something full screen. Control-Alt-M launches our music player, which is Clementine. Let's go ahead and try that out. That is nice that they added a music client. Even though this is for gaming, I could also see people using it as a multimedia server. By the way, nothing happened when I did Control-Alt-M. Where is Clementine? Okay, there it goes. I think the first time I did it, it launched it, but it put it straight into the sys tray, and then when I hit Control-Alt-M again, now it actually brings it up on the desktop. So Clementine is a fantastic audio player. This is Clementine version 1.3.1. Clementine is a fork of the old Amarok audio player that basically ceased development for several years, so people forked Amarok and created Clementine. Now, though, Amarok is back on the scenes. They started releasing new versions of Amarok, but really, Amarok and Clementine now, they've diverged in really two different directions. They really don't resemble much of each other. So I'm going to go ahead and close this welcome screen. If I go to their menu system, so this is the Whisker menu, so I'm assuming we're in XFCE. Now, XFCE just had a big release recently, XFCE 4.14. That was the first release of XFCE in years, but because this is based on Ubuntu LTS, I'm sure they're still running XFCE 4.12 here in Drauger OS. Very modified 4.12, but still XFCE 4.12. So the Whisker menu, if we go to games, we have Lutris and Steam. So we have the installers for both Lutris and Steam. There's an accessories category, and this is some of your basic applications such as your archive manager, your file manager. File manager, I'm assuming, is Nautilus. I would be disappointed if it wasn't. No, it's actually Nemo. So they're not using XFCE's file manager, and they're actually using Nemo. That's a respectable choice. I don't hate it. What else do we have? We have PlayOnLinux, which is also pinned right here to the panel. We have our task manager, our terminal emulator. We have our text editor. What text editor did they go with? This looks like maybe it is gedit, which is GNOME's text editor. It is gedit. So they're not using Mousepad, which is XFCE's text editor. So I guess they're not really trying to stick with the XFCE suite of apps. They're using XFCE, the desktop environment, but they're throwing, apps in from the GNOME suite of apps and Monte's suite of apps, which is fine. We also have a graphics category. Nothing is here, though, an image viewer, so you can, display images. But other than that, that's all that's here. Under Internet, we really don't have anything either. Firefox is our web browser. Let's launch Firefox. See what version we are on here in Drauger OS. And if I click the menu system here, and if I go to Help and About Firefox, we are on the latest Firefox Quantum 69.0. Actually, I'm not sure if that's the latest or not. It's a recent release of Firefox, though. All right, close that out. And if I go back to the menu system, under the multimedia category, we've already taken a look at Clementine. Pulse Audio Volume Control is here, and videos. So this is GNOME's video player. Not much to see there. Other than that, we have our system settings, system tools. Nothing really interesting there. So mostly what you would do with Drauger OS, and you see the big icons, the software center to install software, but I mean, the applications you probably launch most of the time. Steam is here, PlayOnLinux is here. Surprised Lutris is not also pinned there, but I probably could pin it. If I drag it, will it actually go to the panel? It doesn't look like it will. If I right click on it, choose Add to Panel, that makes sense. And panel 0, yeah, I'm assuming that's panel 0. It's the only one here. All right, but why is it way off to the side? Let's right click on that. If I choose Move, and can I put it maybe right here beside Steam? Oh yeah. So that works. Matter of fact, while I'm thinking about it, that panel is probably not going to work in the spot it's in for most people. I'm assuming most of you that run Drauger OS probably don't leave this panel like this. I think it's an interesting design, interesting concept, but I already know what 95% of you are going to do. You're going to right click and you're going to go to Panel Preferences, and you're going to put this somewhere other than where it's at right now. I would probably vertical. Yeah, actually right there on that side of the screen makes a lot of sense. By the way, there's two panels. So there is a panel 0 and a panel 1. Okay. And this panel, though, this just has the session stuff here. You know what? I don't even need that panel. I wonder if I can just delete that panel. I probably could. So if I go back to Panel Preferences and just delete it. Yeah, remove that. This is the panel with the menu system and our pinned apps. This is the one that we need. And now I'm going to choose to display that vertically. And yeah, that's not bad. I could live with that. I don't like that it's 80 pixels wide. Could I make it 50 pixels wide, or even, you know what, 34 pixels wide would work? You know what, to keep it so you guys, it's clear on the video what's actually going on, I'll leave it at 50 pixels wide, but 80 pixels wide is a little big. I'll close that out. And yeah, I think that looks a lot better. Let me right click on the desktop. Well, so we have our right click menu system, very similar to like open boxes or flux boxes right click menu system. XFCE has that capability too. It's usually not enabled by default, but they have it enabled in Drauger OS. So this is our accessories category, games category, everything you see here up in the whisker menu. You could just right click an empty spot on the desktop and get your menu system. So that's pretty cool. But what I was wanting to do was check out their wallpapers. So I'm not sure how to do that without having the traditional menu up. If I go to settings, though, I'm assuming wouldn't be appearance. That would be for our GTK theme, which quite frankly I kind of like. There's not that many options anyway for that. I'm going to right click the menu, go back to settings. I'm going to go to display and see if that's where I can change the wallpaper. No, that won't get it done either. Let me close that. So I'm going to right click, go back to settings. How do I change? Oh, how about this right here? Desktop. There we go. And that's where we find our wallpapers. And okay, let's try the Drauger OS themed wallpapers. I'm assuming that's what that is. Those are interesting, but I'm not sure that's what I would go with. They have some really nice space photographs. Wow, that's a nice one. We got some nature photos as well. These are actually really good, the photographs, especially the nature photographs. I'd probably go with one of those. That one with the fish there. You know what? I'll go with that for now. So if I launch Lutris, for example, I'm not a gamer. I don't know anything about gaming for the most part. I have a Steam account. I log into it maybe 6 times a year. Lutris, don't know anything about Lutris, but apparently this is the installer for it. So we could run through this if we wanted to. I'm not going to. The Steam installer. Well, it looks like it's updating Steam. It's going to be a rather large update. I should actually check system updates as well. I won't do that while Steam is updating. I'll wait for Steam to finish. Well, that Steam update's going to take forever. I'm not about to log into my Steam account in this VM anyway. We're definitely not going to game inside the VM. It might be possible with my equipment, but it wouldn't be the best experience. It wouldn't be a fair representation of what Drauger OS, I'm sure, is like on physical hardware. So I cancel that. Let's do the terminal. So Control-Alt-T gets us to the terminal. Let's do a quick uname space -R. And we are running a low latency kernel. So we are running 5.2.0. This is the Licorice kernel. This is that low latency kernel that should get us much better performance as far as gaming. Again, this is all about gaming and to get the best performance. I run a quick htop. Let's see what kind of system resources is being used by this desktop environment. Htop is not installed on the system. I guess we could install it. So let's see. Let's do a sudo apt update and sudo apt upgrade. Let's see how many packages are available for updating. Now I got to type the right password. That strong and complicated password, it's easy to mistype it. Alright, so there's only 33 packages that need to be updated, including there is a kernel package that needs to be updated. You know what? I'm going to decline that. I don't want to go ahead and update that, but I do want to sudo apt install htop, which was really what I wanted to do, was update the repos so I can install the latest htop. Should just take a second. It's not a very big package. Then I want to run htop. And the 2 threads I gave this machine, Not much is going on, less than 10% of the CPU. That's still a little high, but I got a lot going on here. I still have Clementine open in the sys tray. We could close that out for sure. We're only using 521 megs of RAM of the 4 gigs of RAM that I gave this machine. That's pretty typical of XFCE. It tends to be pretty light. One thing I really wish Drauger OS did, I understand why they focus on platforms like Steam and Lutris, but I wish they focused a little more on free and open source gaming. I think they could ship with some of our outstanding free and open source games by default on their ISO, or at least give me an easy option to install them. I know I could probably find them in the Software Center, but you know, I wish some of that was already here. I wish they focused on some of that as much as they focus on the proprietary games. In fact, let me pull up a terminal again. So Control-Alt-T, and then I'm gonna sudo apt install SuperTuxKart. Now I am horrible at gaming. I'm pretty good at first-person shooters. Well, I'm not good, but I can at least hold my own a little bit. But ooh, I am not good at SuperTux. Wow. I cannot steer this thing at all. So that was a very quick overview of Drauger OS. Again, it's just a quick run through of the installation. The installation went very quick. The one thing is that installer is a little confusing. Maybe they could clean that up a little bit. But overall, I think it's a focused distribution as far as it focuses on a niche, and I think it serves that niche very well. So before I go, this show was made possible by Ansem, First Chris, Second Chris, DJ, Dylan, George, Mitchell, Natek, Philip, Rob, Robert, Sam, and Willie. They are the producers of the show. They're my highest tiered patrons over on Patreon. Without these guys, this episode about Drauger OS would not have been possible. Also brought to you by all those other fine ladies and gentlemen, all those names you see on the screen that help support my work over on Patreon. Without each and every one of these guys, again, this show would not be possible. If you'd like to support my work, please consider doing so. You'll find me at DistroTube over on Patreon. All right, guys. Peace.